Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have our amendment or agenda before us, and we are going to pull 6.6 from consent. So is there a motion to accept the agenda as amended? Second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda as amended. The minutes, we also received the minutes in our packets. Any changes or anything like that?
Mr.
Move
Chair, I'll
those.
move approval of the minutes. Second.
Second, minutes, motion, any discussion? Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now, number 4, this is the time where we get to recognize any interested citizens that have the opportunity to speak at the podium for up to 5 minutes on an item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone that wishes to speak today? Seeing none, we're going to move on to number 5, our new employee introduction. We had new employees this morning, and so come on up, form a line. Your PowerPoints are ready. I'm kidding. Just give us your name, where you've come from, what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Well, my name is Nick Durrance. I come from Affinity Plus Credit Union. I was like a teller / loan officer over there. Now I'm working down in the customer service on the first floor. I've been here about 2 months now.
Hi, my name's Sarah Michelson. I'm one of the school-based therapists at Shakopee West Middle School. I live in Savage and moved here from San Diego about a year ago.
My name is Mela Imamu. I am with Health and Human Services. I do eligibilities. I come from Hennepin County and I live in Savage, and I'm here for 3 weeks now.
Hello, my name is Julie Jacobson, and I have been with Health and Human Services about 3 months. I have moved here from Oregon, having done this work for about 6.5 years in Oregon.
Hi, I'm Gina Young, and I'm providing school-based services in all of the schools in Prior Lake and Jordan. And I come from Washburn Center for Children, where I was for 10 years, and I live in Plymouth.
We kind of ribbed her about that a little bit.
Hi, I'm Jane Cannon. I'm a therapist in the Scott County Mental Health Clinic. I come from Washburn Center for Children, where I was a therapist there for a couple years, and I am living in Carver, Minnesota. And I've been here for a month.
So that's our new employees. Thank you for choosing Scott County. This is our latest and greatest hands and feet of the county, so thanks for choosing Scott County.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like we made a hiring raid on the Washburn Center for Children.
It sounds, I didn't want to bring that up, but you might be onto something there. Exactly.
I was thinking San Diego. Now that sounds
Well,
great move.
yeah, but she's been here through, well, you were, yeah, you,
It's October, so I saw
yeah.
All right.
Because we kind of like, that we always kind of in these new employee, do we bring that up? Do we bring winter up? It'll bring itself up, but because we've got Oregon too, so, and she hasn't been through a winter, so we're going to ask you about that in July when winter's over. We'll ask how it went. Moving on to the consent agenda, I just realized that we are missing woman formation here. I forgot to mention that our chair, Barb Weckman-Brecky, is on a previously scheduled engagement, so we're carrying on without her, and I'm assuming we're going to have some hijinks because she's not here, but we'll see. I'm suspecting she's on one of these cameras, perhaps. That being said, moving on to the consent agenda. These typically have been vetted, obviously been vetted through our staff, and we'll proceed with one motion. 6.1. Approve an amendment to the grant for the receipt of additional funds for the Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program for the biennium period of July 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2021. 6.2, adopt resolution number 2019141, authorizing the county to advance order fleet equipment in the 2020 capital improvement program. 6.3, approve estimate of just compensation by market value appraisals for right-of-way for the reconstruction of County Highway 42 located in the city of Shakopee and the city of Prior Lake. 6.4, approve estimate of just compensation by market value appraisals for new right-of-way for the reconstruction of County Highway 27 from County Highway 21 to County Highway 44 in Credit River Township. 6.5, approve the request for a preliminary plat and final plat of Maggie Lane Farm, Clarence Van Zee applicant and Van Zee Living Trust property owner, consisting of 3 lots on 51.33 acres in Section 27 of Credit River Township. 6.6, of course, was pulled. 6.7, approve payroll processing of personnel actions.
Mr. Chair, move approval. Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to pull them all just because you're the rookie chairman today, but my other 2 colleagues threatened me if I did. So
I figured.
I'll leave them alone.
I thought maybe you were just going to do that to try to improve the ratings,
I'll
perhaps. But
accept a friendly amendment.
there's good chemistry on this board. That's what everyone should take away from this. That's the good news. All right, we have a motion and a second. No discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 7.1. Greg is going to come and talk to us about the Customer Service Week and the presentation of the second quarter Spirit of Scott Awards. Take it away.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So yeah, as you indicated, I'm here for 2 reasons representing the Spirit of Scott Committee. The first is to present the Quarter 2 Awards. We're a little late on these awards, but present the Quarter 2 Awards for staff that have gone above and beyond their current or typical job duties. So the Spirit of Scott Committee was organized to review nominations of staff that go above and beyond and do exceptional work. Each quarter we go through the nominations. This time we had 43 nominations, and we select those that we feel should be recognized at the board. So today we have 4 staff that we are recognizing. Craig Jensen and Nathan Abney from Public Works were nominated by Pam Selvig. Pam nominated Craig and Nathan for their work submitting 6 capital bond requests for Scott County. Pam indicated this is a great example of breaking down silos of county government and working together. Not only did Craig and Nathan enter applications for transportation, but they did one for libraries, health and human services, and parks. They successfully uploaded all of them in the state management and budget portal, which Pam had worked in for several hours and had become very frustrated with. So this was no small task. Pam noted it was truly the most efficient way to get this done, and she appreciates all of their help and thanks them both. Dustin Kruger was nominated by Leslie Vermillion. Dustin went above and beyond in dealing with a resident who had a long family history with the conference center that was across the street. He coordinated with the contractor and the resident to provide access to the building pre-demolition, to remove some wrought iron and door handles, as well as for timing on the demolition so that it could be videoed. Dustin went above and beyond with this family, and it was very much appreciated for a very emotional issue for them. It is just one example of his communication in the building project to date, which he has done a fantastic job communicating with staff on the changes and staying ahead of the communication curve. Nice job. Julie Hansen was also nominated by Leslie. Leslie received a phone call from a very upset gentleman who was frustrated over not being able to get his driver's license. This person was not very pleasant, and not knowing how to resolve the issue, Leslie, her go-to person was Julie, who took the call during her lunch and told this gentleman she would get back to him within the hour once she could get back to the office. Julie contacted the state and found out that he needed more assistance. He asked her to contact his eye doctor, which Julie did. Julie coordinated with the eye doctor, who did not then follow up with the client, but once again, Julie got it straightened out. Julie found out that his test was okayed and the forms were filled out, but once he submitted it to the state, he was told it would be another 6 weeks. At this point, he became belligerent, so Julie handled this with a call to the state, talked about how long the process had been and the snafus, and the license was issued that afternoon. Julie went above and beyond to provide customer service on this confusing issue the county had no control over and saw it through to the end. So nice work to Julie. I do have certificates here for Craig and Nathan and Dustin if they want to come up and be recognized. Julie was ill today, so she could not make it. And then lastly, on the screen, I have the resolution 2019-143. So the other thing is next week is National Customer Service Week. So this is an annual week that was established in 2005. The county board has recognized it every year. So this is a nationally recognized week, October 7th through 11th. So we have Resolution 2019-143 proclaiming October 7th through 11th as Customer Service Week. We do want to note that annually we do appreciation lunch for all of our employees. Monday we will be at Public Works having lunch out there. Tuesday we'll be in the LEC. And Wednesday we'll be at the Workforce Center. So we invite the board and all county employees to attend one of those. I think we have that posted throughout the county. So we would recommend adoption of the resolution and thank the board for their support.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I will make that motion.
Motion.
And I'll second the motion for resolution 2019-143.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Awesome work.
Thank you.
I mean, that's a great, we're grateful that you did second quarter, better late than never.
Right.
So bring it. I mean, it's a great, highlighting some of the things that we do to go and serve the people of this county. So thanks for everyone doing that and chipping in. And we'll see some of these new employees up here receiving these at some point in time. So thanks for that. All right, moving on to 8.1, approve agreements with Keefe Group to provide correctional services. And it looks like the sheriff is, and Captain Schnurr, and we got a whole raft. This is awesome. It's all yours.
Good morning, members of the board. We're going to do a presentation quickly on a contract we're going into with Keefe Group about some of the correctional services we provide in the jail. To fill in this kind of complex piece, I'll have Cassie Cook give kind of a presentation for you, and then we'll fill in with some additional information and be open for questions.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, Cassie.
Good morning, Chairman Beer and members of the board. Like Luke said, my name is Cassie Cook, and I'm the Accounting and Contracts Management Coordinator over at the Sheriff's Office. Therefore, I was responsible for administering this RFP process as well as analyzing the financial figures that came in with those proposals. So I'll just give you an overview today of the process and where we've, how we got to where we are today, landing on our selected vendors, okay? So earlier this year, we decided to publish an RFP that composed of asking for the services of commissary, food, laundry, inmate telephone, video visitation, and electronic medical record system. This is unique in the way that we've approached this in the past. Typically, those are all separate. However, in our own experience, through the current contracts we're in, our food and laundry service vendor has recently purchased our commissary company, as well as during our current contract term, we've had our phone company purchase our EMR vendor as well. And so along with that, our experiences in that, as well as what our staff has learned at current conventions, et cetera, we have a lot of these vendors becoming one-stop shops and offering multiple of these services through their companies. So we decided to try for the home run and put them all together in hopes of gaining benefits both financially and functionally under one vendor. Not to eliminate any of the smaller single service vendors out there, we did accept individual and bundled service proposals. So in June, we received proposals from 8 different vendors, each of which provided solutions for a number of either 1 to 3 services. We had 3 evaluation teams that separated these services and went through the appropriate steps to do our evaluation, brought them in for demos, had discussions. After the scoring, demos, and discussions, we did have 3 vendors that landed on top of the charts clearly. They happen to be a part of the same parent company, Keefe Group. And so those sister companies that were selected are as follows: Trinity Service Group for food and laundry service, IC Solutions for inmate phone and video visitation, and Keefe Commissary for the inmate commissary, which also includes the accounting software for the jail and all the inmates. Also, at the conclusion of the evaluation period, we also made the decision to formally cancel the EMR portion of the RFP. Reason being, we only received one straightforward EMR response to compete with our current vendor, who proposed just continuing paying our annual maintenance for the current system that we're on. That system, I should say more or less the support that we're receiving for that system, I know that our nursing and correctional staff has some concerns with. Therefore, in consultation with the procurement office, obviously we decided that it wasn't good procurement practice to move forward with basically one proposal, one price, etc. So we decided to formally cancel that portion of it, and actually we've decided to go a different direction. The monetary amount expected for that contract brings us below the statutory required RFP process. Therefore, we're going with just bringing in some vendors for demos and straight quotes to move forward with the EMR portion. That actually does begin tomorrow. We have 3 more vendors to come in to compare to the one. So we'll be moving forward with that process separately. So the vendors that were selected are all new to the Scott County Jail. As I said before, each of them is forecasted as the most financially beneficial options and deemed equal to or more functional than their competitors. We are currently targeting an early November transition for our food and laundry, and then we will be pushing out the transition date, or our planned transition date, for the rest of the technical services that all have a software component to early February. I just also, we want to highlight in some of these areas, let alone the fiscal impacts, we want to highlight some of the functional changes in our jail. First, beginning with the food and laundry service. For a very reasonable cost, we were able to eliminate inmate workers from our kitchen and laundry service. In the past couple years, we have, due to the quick turnover of our inmates and the eligibility screening, we found it very difficult to fulfill our obligation in our current contract of sustaining the inmate worker down there, the inmate workers down there. We've also, therefore, moving on with a service that does not rely on inmate workers, we are anticipating many benefits for that: less wear and tear on equipment, better service, more efficient use of the laundry chemicals, the linens, the uniforms, etc. We also currently, with our current vendor, we have what we call a snack cart that goes through a couple times a week through the pods, that offers a kind of convenience store-like snacks after dinner that we receive a commission on. That's been very popular. Therefore, we were excited to see our new food and laundry company offer what they call a takeout program. So it will kind of replace that, in the sense that a couple times a week, the inmates will be able to order takeout type meals in addition to the regularly served dinner that the county will receive a commission on. For inmate phone and video visitation, the selected vendor, IC Solutions, proposed a simple and competitive fee structure for inmate calling. Right now, under the current vendor, we have several different rates per minute based on where they're calling and other attributes, but this vendor proposed actually a rate equal to or very close to the current local rate per minute for our inmates, and that's across the board, the type of calls that they're making. So a very straightforward rate. The biggest change with the new vendor is that we will be condensing and minimizing our public visiting booth area. We are going from currently 14 public visiting booths down to 4, and that is because we will be adopting Skype-like video visitation, where members of the community are able to visit through computers, phones at home to a kiosk that will transfer to a kiosk within the housing units. So similar in the sense that right now our visits are not face-to-face, they're through an electronic screen just from a room to up in the pods, but they'll now be able to do that from home. And so per our vendor, we're expecting the foot traffic to decrease up to 80%. That's why we're going down to 4 booths on site. Also, one of the other highlights with that change is right now, the visiting times are scheduled for about 8.5 hours per week that we staff. This will require very minimal to no staffing as the scheduling's all handled on a software. All those connections are made through the pod and through their system. So visiting will now be offered up to 10 hours each day, virtually when the inmates are not on lockdown. So some major benefits are there. As far as commissary, we will return to utilizing vending machines within the housing units. We have done that several years ago, but on the current contract, we went away from that, kind of replaced it with a snack cart. We have great confidence in the selected vendor that the vending machine, the technical components and the structure of it is much better for the correctional environment, and that they seem to be, that they'll be successful. It'll also be complemented again with twice a week brown bag deliveries for hygiene items and such. Another huge bonus with the proposed vendor is that they will have one full-time staff member on site for us here at Scott County Jail. They'll be primarily responsible for keeping those vending machines stocked, handling any commissary grievances, etc. Therefore, obviously, we have great confidence that our staff will have little to no involvement in that operation. Last but not least, on that commissary point, this vendor was also the only one to charge no service charge on cash and credit card deposits made in the lobby. There will be a charge for bail by credit card, but no charge for cash bail. But in general, just the general deposits to the inmate account for use within the facility. There is no convenience fee charged on the credit card nor cash deposits, and obviously the credit card piece, that's the first vendor we've ever seen to do that, and so we're hoping that that works out well for us and is a great convenience to the public. Therefore, now to move into the fiscal impacts based on those decisions that we are proposing. The 5-year food and laundry contract with Trinity Service Group is estimated at a cost of $446,000, $411,000 of that being for the jail, and $35,000 of that being for the juvenile alternative facility, which suggests a $79,000 total increase to the jail and JAF budgets. I do want to point out that the other food and laundry proposal was from our current vendor, and it was actually going to cost $30,000 more to retain our current vendor with inmate workers than it is to go with the new vendors and be able to eliminate the inmate workers in the kitchen and laundry. The 5-year inmate phone and video visitation contract is estimated at revenues of $353,000, suggesting a $35,000 annual increase to the revenue in the jail budget. The 5-year commissary contract with Keefe Commissary is estimated at revenues of $297,500, suggesting an annual $10,000 increase in revenue to the jail budget. So in summary, all of this together results in a suggested operational expense increase of $34,000. With the majority of these occurring next year, we feel comfortable about absorbing the increase to the food and laundry contract for the remaining 2 months of this year. And additional funding estimated is for the 2020 budget of $34,000 has been identified in the budget, so we were not asking formally for an increase. Finally, with the financial piece, I just want to point out too that obviously all of these projections are heavily based on our inmate population and their length of stay, but we do feel that we've been what's the word I'm looking for? Conservative. that we've been conservative in those projections. We've been doing this for quite a while. We have to do this every year. But a lot of these, when you switch to a new vendor and new fee structures, new commission base, it will take us a couple months, half a year to a year to really see how this flows and works out. And we'll obviously do our best every year to, again, conservatively project that. So if there are any questions, I am available, as well as Captain Schnur.
Questions? Commissioner Beard.
Mr. Chair, thank you. First of all, the work program. I know inmates could work off a percentage of their sentence by doing some of the work within the facility. What happens to that program?
So the benefit of this program too is there's still opportunities like Sentence to Serve out in the community that we haven't been able to send inmates to for some time just because of the few that we have. So this will allow them to sign up for that program and actually do some work out in the community that's more effective and efficient for everybody.
Mr. Chair, Sheriff Hennon, is it, and I'm familiar with this because I've just walked this path with, first of all, a neighbor kid and now one of my own kids. When you leave the facility and come back, don't you have to do the strip search thing every time you leave and come back?
Yes. Yeah.
That would seem to make Sentence to Serve in the community pretty unattractive if I was being offered that.
And they also get searched when they go into the kitchen to work as well.
They do? Strip search to the kitchen and strip
They
search
get,
to the
well, they
laundry?
get searched for any movements they're doing around the building. Yeah.
Come again?
They do get strip searched.
For every movement within the jail?
Because when we're putting them into the kitchen, they're exposed to knives and cleaning agents and everything like that. So, and that's a whole part of the inefficiencies as well. We send these inmate workers down there and we spend a lot of staff time searching them, bringing them in and out, where the kitchen and laundry area will now become just a secure part of the jail that inmates won't have access to, and we won't have to do all that.
Good, thanks. Next topic, the costs of the commissary. When my son was arrested recently, he called us in the middle of the night, or texted us and said, please feed my cats, here's where I am. And we texted him back, and it was just surprised to discover I had to establish an account before I could communicate. Establishing the account cost $8.95. The texts were nearly $2 a text, just to text back and forth on, well, where'd you hide the house key? Where's the cat food? Things like that. He called us. I got a strange 800 number on my phone after he'd talked to his attorney. And that was something like $14.95 just to answer the call. Is this kind of what we're doing? Now, this is an adjacent county. This isn't this one. Are we doing that to our inmates as well and their families?
We can speak to the fees of the current contract.
Yeah, so I know the setting up of an account, that's very consistent amongst all vendors and getting into their system and setting up the opportunity to do those things. The fees, I know also, they do seem relative, but I know there's options as well, what type of phone, if, you know, if you're just answering, if it's a collect call, or if they set up an account and have money here to start their own initiative. There's different versions of it, but what I can tell you is that I know that with the new vendors, we certainly weren't going up in any inmate fees that you've talked about right now, and are making them more reasonable, in some instances, much more appropriate, I guess.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yep.
Related to that, the Skyping now, we're going to go away from people coming over to the jail. That leads me immediately to, well, what's it going to cost to set up a Skype account now? If we're going to Skype with someone who's in jail, and I'm not talking just even about relatives, but if you're doing some sort of jail ministry or just checking in on a neighbor or something like that, we can walk over there now and hand in our driver's license and get a booth in the video booth. I've done that to a couple friends. But if we're going to Skype from home, is that going to also require establishing an account and having to pony up a fee to get into the system?
Yep, and to clarify too, the visiting still will happen in the jail.
Sure.
You can still always do that for free. This is just another option.
Okay.
One of the main concerns we hear in the community too is, say, families, for instance, loved ones in custody.
Yep.
And as you've been in our lobby during visiting hours, very busy. Sometimes they wait
crowded.
for 2 hours and they don't make the cut because there's not enough time for them. So this is also a better environment for children and families as well, to be able to have that option to visit from home. But Cassie, do you have any information on that?
As far as that goes, I know that there is no fee to set up an account. I can tell you, I just have a couple of notes here on the calls, that most of the phone calls, again, I do not believe there's a setup fee, but most of the calls will be 21 cents per minute. And then we also will be implementing the availability for voicemail, which is, I believe, $1, and they get maybe 30 seconds for $1. And then also the video visitation, Doug, I'm not sure if you can remember better than I can, but I want to say that that's somewhere around for a 15-minute video visitation. I believe it was under $10. So,
Okay.
give me an idea.
Just a couple more, Mr. Credit, because obviously I've just walked this path, and although in our situation, for my wife and I, we just find it annoying. But if I was making minimum wage, I'd be in a world of hurt, having to set up an account and put money into an account. This is another thing that surprised me. While we were considering setting up the account so we could do the text messaging and the voicemail thing, there was an opportunity to put money on his commissary account, I think it was, in $10 increments. Again, the first $10 was eaten up by the $8.95 to establish that account as well. But after release, I said, didn't you have money in your wallet? And he said, we're not allowed to access our own funds. Even though he could have easily put $50 on his own commissary thing, he was prohibited from accessing his own wallet while he was in prison. It had to come from outside and go through the system. Just an observation, and I think you can see where some citizens could think it offends their sense of fair play. Yes, they've misbehaved, yes, they're in jail, and yes, it costs the taxpayers to have them there, which is a cost of doing government. We get that. Because as I've said before, we're not angels, men misbehave, people misbehave. But I think you see kind of where my concern is here. I'm going to support your resolution, but I just want you to know that some of us have walked the path and find it hugely annoying and wondering about the fairness and the even-handedness of putting it all on that kind of a system.
And that's been our concern as well, Commissioner.
Good, thank you for
Part of the reason
thinking
why we settled on some of these vendors like we have is because of their pricing structures and the price and the fees that they were charging their clients, in our estimation, were more reasonable than what we were currently dealing with.
Good, okay.
I cannot speak to how the other county is conducting their business, but in Scott County, if with our new system coming in, if you come in with money in your wallet and even change, under our current system, we couldn't accept change. We didn't have a way to do that. But this new system will have a way to do that.
Good.
And I also believe that there'd be an opportunity for them as well if they wanted to use their credit card to put some money on their account. As far as the video visitation goes, we've discovered that, technology is being widely embraced. Everybody's going for that, and there is a huge demand out there for it. With the video visitation that we're going now, yes, we will have free visiting within the facility. We just aren't going to need as much space because other facilities, for instance, Sherburne County, has seen about an 80–85% reduction in the number of people who are coming through their facility, despite the cost. It's just more convenient. People have said, you know what, yeah, it takes a little bit to set the account up. It costs me a little bit more to do the visiting, but I can do it at any time I want, and it's convenient for me. The other nice thing about it is they can do that from their cell phones. They can, it's like FaceTiming from their cell phones, so. It's a technology that's very much in demand anymore, and we're trying to make it more convenient for family and friends to visit people who are in the jail. Right now, we know that the way we've got it set up, it's not convenient. And with schedules, facility schedules as tight as they are, we've been as liberal as we can under our current system. With this new stuff, we've got greater opportunities to expand that for the inmates.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and Captain Schnur, thank you for your comments. The current system is not that easy to negotiate or navigate if you just want to stop and offer an encouraging word to somebody who's really screwed up. Perhaps this will cost me $10 to access that, but maybe that still is better than coming down here and trying to find a parking spot and standing in line and dealing with customer service over there at the jail. So, thanks for hearing my concerns about the way we seem to be piling on little people, that's always a concern of mine. When they screw up and we do things, it affects us differently sometimes. And like my family is just annoyed by it, but there are families where this means probably not a tank of gas this week or something like that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
If I could just answer a couple more questions too. On that, it's a national conversation about fee schedules. So our county is on one of the cutting edge of trying to correct some of that and look at that. With that though, like video visitation, these technologies come to us too because of the fee schedules. So it's normally would be a capital improvement project to put in all this infrastructure to provide this service, and these companies do it basically for free, built into their fee schedules. So we try to find the most reasonable, but also not put a burden on the taxpayers for this huge technology, and put into 8 pods and install that. And I just want to touch on real quickly to some of the staff savings we'll see on this as we discuss pressure in the jail. As Doug said, our visiting currently, it's so busy. There's many of the hours we do it, we staff it with 2 people, or some of our reserve volunteers, or other people in the jail, put them on a special schedule just to staff it because there's so many people coming through to process them in and out. By this reduction, Mary at the front window can handle visiting while doing her normal business, and we'll be able to expand those hours. And some of the other piece we talked about is, can we expand more family-friendly visiting in the building too, because we'll have more abilities, where now it's such a pressure to even get the current visiting done. So currently we spend 780 hours a year staff time just doing visiting, where that's, like I said, they're not able to do anything else, so that's a big chunk of a full-time employee. And then also in the kitchen laundry area too, that's the other big issue, is we're required on our contract to try to put 5 people in the kitchen, 2 in laundry. And there's that, like I said, the pressure of the turnover of the inmates, so they may only be in there for a couple weeks and then we're training the next person to try to do it. That'll take some time, but also we have to go check on them. So when they're down there, we have to do health and welfare checks every 20 minutes. So an officer has to leave the area they're working, or the post or the booking area, walk down to that area, which takes 8 to 10 minutes round trip just to make that check. So the simple math I did on that is, it's 16 hours a day that we're going down there to check on inmates, because laundry goes to almost 11 at night. Kitchen starts up at 6 in the morning. So that's, if you do it 2 times an hour for that time, that's averages 1,750 hours a year that we put into just doing that task. So this will open up some bandwidth to the employees, especially during day shift when it's busy, helping process bookings and get people in and out. And like I said, we also eliminate the chemicals, the knives, the other weapons, tools down in the kitchen that we have to make sure they're not misplacing or smuggling back in. So we have increased safety, and we don't, to the employees as well, these vendors, they don't have to work directly with inmates unsupervised down there, which is another problem. These contracts try to bring in cook staff to do this job, but also tell them, hey, plus you have to supervise 5 inmates while you're here cooking, for 140 people. So it'll really create some major efficiencies in our operations and provide safety. So, and I'll take any additional questions as well.
Well, I just want to make a quick comment that I remember, so thanks for making those last notations, because when I came online, you were gracious enough to call and say, hey, come on over, I want to put you in jail. No, I think you said tour of the jail. Gave me a tour of the jail, and that was one of the things you mentioned, is that, hey, we need to supply, so many inmates to do this, that, and the other, and it's just hard. And I remember that just kind of landed, like, I had this preconceived notion that, well, got all this labor just sitting around, easy peasy. But I also am very well aware that oftentimes volunteer labor is rarely free. And so I completely get that, and going through that simple math is, I think, very helpful. And that Skype, I think, is going to be a game changer, because I've been down there, we've all been down there for tours or whatever it is, and it's a hornet's nest down there. So being able to reach across different platforms, and that's really going to be awesome. So we have been asked to support this contract.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for hearing my concerns and having had them addressed. I will move to approve the agreements with Keefe Group to provide correctional services in the county jail.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Thank you. Well done. With that, we are going to move on to committee reports and commissioner updates, and I will start to my right with Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting on the 17th, excuse me, planning and zoning, I had a little meeting about some things happening out in the townships. On the 18th, we had our insurance meeting. Things are doing pretty well. We self-insure, so we take in some monies to pay claims off, and we actually are moving up in the amount of months we have in reserve, which is a great thing. That evening, the Township Association of Scott County met and had their fall meeting. A lot of good things happening out in the townships. On the 23rd, my meeting with the administrator, and after that, actually nothing after that. The next night was the ribbon cutting at the water plant that's done between the SMSC and Prior Lake. And the, excuse me, the Soil and Water Conservation, the WMO tour took place. A couple nice projects that are going on. On the 25th, the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District had their just an executive meeting. Pretty quiet there. On the 26th, the Vermilion River Joint Powers had their meeting. We had very little on the agenda that day. On the 30th, the Savage Tour. Anyhow, on the 30th, the Savage Tour, we did that last night. I thought that was one of the best tours we've had of all the tours. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on in Savage there, and things are really looking good. And then last night at Newmarket Township, we had a zoning meeting, zoning ordinance meeting, and just to go over with the three townships that are, three of my four townships. Credit River is forming their own city, so they were not in attendance, but went pretty well, and all the questions got answered pretty well, and that was it. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, when was the ribbon cutting for the water treatment plant?
That was actually the 24th.
24th. Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, for my report on the 18th, I, as Commissioner Wolf mentioned, attended the Scott County Township meeting at Spring Lake Township. Of concern or interest to us as a board is we had wide-ranging and I thought thorough discussion, a good discussion about the much discussed nuisance property. I think is the public health nuisance property ordinance that we've talked about and had a workshop about and haven't taken any action on yet. And the townships would like to consider it and weigh in. And I think their township association attorney actually has that. And perhaps Leslie can speak to that. Your report, or you want to comment now?
Well, I could comment right now, Chairman Baird. We've actually received the comments back from the township attorney.
Good.
There were some minor things on correcting, I think just a difference in opinion. Jeannie is reviewing it. Actually, it was quite positive, and I think we'll be able to move it forward based on what we saw and the comments received.
Good, thank you. Mr. Chairman, on the 19th, we are a part of an association called the Minnesota Inter-County Association. Brand new executive is on board, former Senate, nonpartisan staffer who worked with real estate tax law at the Capitol. I remember crossing paths with him, but never really having any interaction with Matt Mussman, but he came out here to visit with me, and I think several of us, and I appreciated getting to know him a little better. On the 22nd, my friend Joe Vaughn died. And that has had a huge impact on the community. Of course, the Vaughn name is a big name in Shakopee, a good name in Shakopee. And since I'm your liaison on the CAP agency board, you should know that the CAP agency was really quite rocked by the whole thing. Joe has done a good job over the last couple of years, in my estimation, of bringing stability to the organization. They've had some turnover. Perhaps, I think in the entire three most senior members of his management team all retired within the last 18 months. And they had a misfire on a hire for a chief financial officer. They've got that rectified now. And with one of the things that as a board we insisted on with the abrupt departure of the previous executive director was we need to have an emergency succession plan. And that is in play right now, and it's working. So just so you know, that's although it's with heavy hearts, it's steady as she goes at the CAP agency, and the board will be making a decision probably next week, I think, on the second Tuesday when we meet, about how to proceed with hiring somebody to fill that position. So just so you know, that's going on out there. On the 25th, I had lunch with Administrator Vermillion, Leslie, to catch up on things and stay in the loop. On the 26th, I was privileged to attend the Metropolitan Airports Commission Annual State of Aviation Luncheon. That's a very big deal for the metropolitan area in particular, and was glad to be there and cross paths with several people, including the Commissioner of Transportation, who reminded me it's past time to have a cup of coffee and talk about some key transportation issues that concern all of us. On the 30th, attended the court policy luncheon in the boardroom to talk about several issues pertaining to the construction of the new court building and the government center in between. And one of the things that we've had an ongoing discussion about has been, there's a tiny little pretend courtroom, if we can call it that, in the law enforcement center where bail hearings are held several times a week. Part of what we're doing as we're expanding court facilities in the new courthouse in conjunction with the new building is they would like to have it more defined as a courtroom in the law enforcement center. So to my colleagues on the board, watch for that to come forward in a workshop, and we'll talk about what that means and some of the efficiencies for the sheriff's office and for the security of the whole process, not having to move prisoners back and forth across the street. I think it's going to be I think you'll be pleased with the decisions and the outcome. And of course, last night, privileged to have a joint tour of the city of Savage with Savage City Council and several of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Ulrich.
On the 18th, I attended the Transportation Advisory Board, and there is something troubling that is going on in this new regional solicitation. They're creating a category, a BRT category, Bus Rapid Transit. And they're going to fund a project every 2 years to the tune of about $25 million. And they made a late change in this category of this proposal that affects us or could affect us. It was BRT, and it would include any BRT, any arterial BRT, any regular BRT, any freeway BRT, but they changed it to one of the kind of last minute change to what this category would be to the arterial BRT category. And what that means is the only projects in that category would likely be in Hennepin and Ramsey County. Snelling Avenue, for example, is an arterial BRT. So what this means to us is if the red line, which would be Apple Valley, or the orange line, which would be Burnsville, or the study that we did on 169 from our county up to Highway 55 and into Minneapolis, that's a BRT. If we needed an improvement on an extension to the red line or to the orange line, something, connecting, say, the Mall of America, or not the Mall of America, the Burnsville Mall, or whatever to like the orange line, or some connection there, would not be eligible in this category any longer. Or if we wanted, in the corridor, 169 corridor, wanted to do a project in advance, and sometimes the only way to do these large BRT projects is little by little, do a bite-sized chunk, especially when something is needing improvement anyhow. Let's say there's a regular roadway improvement that's needed, and then we say, okay, let's do a special project here, anticipating in the future, BRT in this corridor. And remember, BRT and MinPass, those combined are probably the only way we're ever going to get another additional lane on 169. So we got to hope for that and work for that. And so what I'm suggesting, STA is going to send a letter, Minnesota Valley Transit's going to send a letter, each of the member cities of Minnesota Valley Transit Authority are going to send a letter saying they wanted to go back to one of the earlier proposals that made BRT and arterial BRT eligible. And now, I pointed this out at the TAB, and they said, well, there really isn't anything in the BRT category that's imminent, so we could do that in future solicitations. This is a 2-year process. But the point is here is oftentimes an application is made in this solicitation, knowing that it's sort of a trial run, we probably won't get funding for it. We're kind of doing it to get it in the pipeline, to get it recognized, get sort of an established track record that it's an ask that's been there. And so it's important, and so I'm recommending to, through our Transportation Committee and through Leslie, or Lisa Freeze, that we also contact everybody along the 169 corridor. The Plymouths, the Golden Valleys, the Edina, the Bloomington, and ask them to consider sending a letter supporting a more broad interpretation of this category. So that's an important thing. I'm also troubled how over time, I've been on that committee for a long time. Little by little, over the years, we've been moving money out of regular roads and bridges into things like unique project category, which was, I think we gave $5-some million to Minneapolis and St. Paul for charging stations in the last solicitation. And to me, it's simply a way to blow money, really. You take it out of roads and bridges, the kind of the meat and potatoes of what we really should be about, and give it to all these, special, unique, categories. I don't think it's the best use. That isn't the only shift that's occurred over time. Over time, there's been shifting money out of roads and bridges to bike and pet. And it's like, who really considers bike as a year-round, 12-month-a-year transportation system? I would like to see some of these advocates for that send me their pictures and riding their bikes in February or end of January. I was telling Commissioner Beard that he ought to have an annual bike ride in end of January. Every year. I mean, we were joking about it, but I applaud those that ride their bike and commute to work and with a bike, and that's great. But as far as a major way to get people around in Minnesota, it's just not. It's not reality. So I'm concerned that we're whittling down the what I consider the meat and potatoes, which is roads and bridges. So that's what's happening there.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ulrich's point, when I used to have to drive to St. Paul for work every day, on 2 occasions, one March, snowy March, there was a rolling traffic jam on County Road 42 through Savage because some knucklehead was riding his bicycle in the right-hand traffic lane during a snowstorm when nobody expected to see him. We were just convinced he probably had a death wish or he really wanted to make a point to irritate his suburban neighbors, but I actually saw it and brought it up to Dorian, the bike advocate at St. Paul, and he just shook his head. And, but you're right, there has been a perceptible shift to creating bicycles as if they're equal forms of transportation for people 75 years old in January.
And I love trails, they're as far as, but they're more recreation, exercise. I mean, trails are heavily used. I support trails, but they're not much of a meaningful transportation system, in my opinion. That's my bias.
Okay.
September 19th, I also met the MICA director. The 24th, we had a fish outreach and marketing meeting. These are happening once a month in different cities, and this time it was in Savage. And we actually had an elected official, and I'd like to encourage all the elected officials. We had a state representative say they want to become a fish partner because they have people trickling in their sphere of influence that meet needs, and so this state representative said, I could post a need, just, so I'd like to be a partner. And so I'm thinking I should contact the state representatives and state senators and elected officials and say, hey, you're in your role, you're running into people with need, become a partner, and then you can post needs, and needs can be met through the fish network. So we had a great meeting there with Mayor Williams and so forth. September 25th, the MVTA board meeting. We talked a lot about what was going on at the TAB. September 30th, the city-county tour, and I thought Brad Larson did a fabulous job. Very, very good. That's the end of my report.
So before I move on to my report, I am going to second your fact that you are a proponent of trails. And my guess is you got a couple pictures on the phone of some trails that are maybe not in the best of shape. So he is a big proponent of trails, to be sure. And then going back to that letter, is there anything we need to do as a board, or we can talk about that offline, but to put some weight?
We'll pass a resolution coming up. They have the proposal's out for a public comment right now. And then it comes back in the fall, late fall, I don't know if it's November, where we then vote on these proposals.
So typically, we've prepared some type of comment letter to the chair of the Met Council, and the board has taken action through a resolution. And then we would forward that to them within the time period. So you will see it come back to you.
And if we were able to do that with, like what you said, all the other partners up the corridor, put some weight, so awesome. Thank you for that good work. My report on the 24th had a chair, vice chair that morning. I'm trying to figure out how I can clone myself like Commissioner Wolf, because I could only go to the WMO tour, and I missed the water treatment ribbon cutting, and somehow you made it there both. Can we check the tape on that? Is that possible? No, I don't. I'm kidding, of course. Good chemistry, remember that. On the 26th, Fish Board meeting, and 30th last night, Savage Tour has been mentioned. It was great to get the history and kind of see see that city going, and partnership with the county was great. And this morning, we had the new employee welcome. That is my report, and is there any additions?
I just did it, and thank you for saying, the water tour started at 3. I got there about
Good,
quarter
no,
to.
good
and
for you.
I looked around, and I unfortunately missed the speech by the mayor and others, so.
No, I know you were there. That was just good natured. I know, because it did start early.
It did, yeah, it did.
Um,
And then, but I got a couple other things. On the 19th, I forgot to mention the Vermilion River Joint Power Tour. That was pretty good. And then the 20th, I filled in for Barb on the Workforce and Investment Board there in St. Paul, so thank you.
Awesome, yeah, thank you. So, county administrator update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a reminder, the October 29th work session has been canceled, and that will be part of our meeting on November 22nd. We've extended that a little bit to accommodate. I also was at the ribbon cutting, and I did want to say that both the Chairman Vig and Mayor Briggs acknowledged the county for their role in that, with providing some land that needed to be cleaned up. And Chris Laggy did a great job shepherding that through the process here at the county. Other than that, and maybe Ron will hit on it, we received that I forwarded to you an email from Judge Wilton this morning that we were successful in our Veterans Court application. And so we'll see that moving forward, and need to continue to get that set up in the process that we need to follow. But that was good news that we received this morning as well. And that's the end of my report.
Before we move on, thank you for representing at that opening, because I know it was a city, SMSC, but the county had some part to play, so thank you for standing in for all of us that evening. Looking down to my right, County Attorney, any need to recess for attorney-client privilege?
Before I get to that and keep you in suspense, I'd like to also acknowledge that we did receive that DOJ grant for the Vets Court, which we're very excited about, and I know the board had a workshop on that earlier where we gave you information on that. And as Administrator Vermillion mentioned, we'll be coming back to the board here eventually, hopefully soon, for final approval on the board's action for that. So we're very excited about getting that Vets Court up and running.
That's great.
And no, we do not need to meet.
Double good news. That's awesome. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
There is.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion?
Well, Mr. Chairman,
I'd like to talk more about that ordinance.
the history of adjournment.
Someday that's gonna come up. Someday it's gonna come up, probably sooner than later. So with that, all in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.